playing the part of Dr. Treves. And that's what convinced him. I said, but Treves is a very good man. And I think Jonathan's reply was, as far as I can remember, he said, well, that's what I want for Lecter. But he's a compassionate man, and he's a humanitarian. He's a good man locked inside this insane mind. And for some, God knows what reason, I understood the man and how to play him. I knew he was the shadowy figure that lurks inside all of us. And I don't know why I have an instinct about those things, but I do. I'm fascinated by the shadow side of our psyches, because they are also the most creative sides of us. And if we deny the shadow side and the dark side of our nature, we live a pretty bland life, or a destructive life, because it'll come out in the end in some form or another.
The budget seems ludicrously small nowadays, but it was $20 million.
It was really a very modest production. It wasn't an attempt to go out and make an Academy Award-winning film.
Walker.
Jonathan is very loyal, very family-oriented, and his crews are full of people who have been with him from the beginning.
A variety of different producers. Ed Saxon, who's his kind of constant companion. The late Kenny Ott, without whom none of this stuff would have happened. Kenny would always be there to calm the waters.
Even though the story was set in Tennessee and Washington and West Virginia, we hoped to find one place where we could do all of that.
Kenny Ott and Jonathan Demme had been canvassing the world, looking for the right city to place this story in. And the one that kept us all very intrigued was Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has a kind of coal and steel background, and the fact that it has many hills and rivers, and it's just packed with character. There was a wealth of locations there that were unbelievable and had never been filmed before.
The great monumental buildings that are there.
The Natural History Museum, the Soldiers and Sailors Museum.
All the other elements came together in the small towns around there, provided some of the West Virginia look.
The location that we used for the asylum was created out of several locations that we found. The full exterior was shot out in the wilds near Pittsburgh. And then the interiors were pieced together from different parts of the city jail.
We'd go to a jail and do coming down a stairs and through a door. Then we'd be at some other location where there was like a bridge. And then we ended up at the set.
This unbelievable dungeon type of area that we then created out of our heads, which became where Lecter was housed.
All the sets that were constructed were at this abandoned plant, so they had this amazing jail set was constructed there.
There was also some primary sources of photographs of, like, the Nuremberg trials. All of these officers lining up against the tiny windows of each of the cells. That influenced me in what the hallway looked like.
Agent Stalin! Agent Stalin!
The notion that we were going to put Hannibal in a kind of plexiglass box really came about in a very unusual way. During the pre-production period, we did, I don't know how many versions of bars. Should they be this wide, this wide, this wide, you know, and we did a million variations on that theme. Jonathan was very unhappy with all of this because he felt that if he wanted to really see the faces, then he would always have this in front of them, and so that, you know, the audience would go crazy. And then I just remembered one day how a lot of the liquor stores oftentimes were completely enclosed in plexiglass. And so I suggested that we do that instead, and that everybody was thrilled with that notion. There was only one person who was not thrilled with that notion, Chris Newman, who's our sound man. He said, wait a second, you know. I said, well, let's just put some holes in, you know, like they do, and, you know, then that'll be that. Part of our tour in the early stages of researching was to go to all of the places that really might have been used in the story, and the FBI was one of them. And we were invited to go down there after they had read the script, obviously, and made sure that it was all up to their standards.
They viewed this film as a kind of a recruiting film for female agents. which at the time was a big issue for them, and they thought this would be a positive force in attracting women to the FBI. Jodie was welcomed into the training course. She did 2 or 3 days of immersion in the experience of being a student at the FBI Academy.
Crawford wants to see you in his office.
We were privileged to actually go visit Quantico and been given an incredible tour around the whole facility, which is nestled off in the wilds of outer Washington, D.C.
And they were extremely cooperative and supportive, and they gave us the FBI Training Academy at Quantico, Virginia, as a set, really. They gave us free rein. The firing range and all the places on that campus, and we were able to do that part of the movie, get the real reality of it.
Oh, and Senator, just one more thing. Love your suit.
It wasn't a fashion movie. I wanted it to be a movie that you could watch in 10 years and not have it be from any time. I didn't really want to nail the year that it was made in the costumes. Jodie Foster wore a green sort of heather color toggle coat and tweed jacket and pants for most of the movie, which is sort of vulnerable and also very classic and timeless. With Anthony Hopkins' costumes, the fit of the costumes was very precise. We had a lot of fittings. Even though it was a prison uniform, we felt like that Hannibal would have managed somehow to have his clothes look like they were made to order for him, even if he was in prison. We went through a couple color evolutions, starting with reality, which is the orange, and did a lot of camera tests with different colors of orange and decided that somehow that didn't suit Hannibal's character.
Hannibal's mask was a really interesting dilemma. Colleen Atwood had a whole host of ideas, and we just kept going through them, one after the other.
For a while there were thoughts of fencing, sort of grid masks going on and all kinds of things, and then we got more and more to the sort of modern sort of idea of the fiberglass mask. The thought had been to have the mask have a finish on it, but when we received the sample, it was raw fiberglass, which looked like an old piece of dried up leather, or even skin, and it was so great, so it never went back for its paint job.
I think we did something different in Lambs. In terms of the narrative line, we kept making leaps forward in time, and we let the audience fill it in. Lecter's in a pen, locked up with a mask on his face and tied up, and he sees the pen put on his bed. And then the next thing we see, there's a big leap. We see him use that to pick a lock. We don't see how he got it. We knew full well that at some point we had to show the monster.
I don't feel those moments of violence. I mean, it's a trick. All of it is a trick. It's acting.
This was a very dangerous point in the story. I obviously had to leave Clarice for 10 or 15 minutes during Lecter's escape. It was so brilliantly written in the book. We knew that it would be just incredible on screen. We had to do it. Jonathan says it was like a movie within a movie.
We're losing him.
It had to be so tightly scripted and so tightly choreographed for the camera and for the actors. And it had to set us up for the third act of the movie.
We got him on lactated ringers running, and the patient is on 10 liters of oxygen.
The second kind of action peak has Clarice at the center of it. It's an astonishing thing on Tom Harris's part. The two huge surprise reversals. First with Lecter's escape, and then with the SWAT team hitting the wrong house. In the book, it's kind of two discrete events. The SWAT team arrives at the wrong house, they realize it's the wrong house, and boom, she's arriving at Gum's house. When Jonathan and I worked over the script, he said, you know what, I think we can go much further with this simultaneous action.
Good afternoon. Sorry to bother you.
When I made the first cut of the scene, I'm almost embarrassed to say that, is that I did it without parallel action.
We're going in.
There's no one here, Jack. Clarice.
Good afternoon. Sorry to bother you. I'm looking for Mrs. Lippman's family.
Somewhere I had heard that they wanted to do it straight, and I kept it that way until Jonathan looked at the first cut. The lights went up, and he said, that should be parallel cut.
Good afternoon. Sorry to bother you. I'm looking for Mrs. Lippman's family.
The trick to it was to reveal the shot of Clarice opening that door at the exact right point.
Clarice.
Your name is?
The moment of recognition when she makes him.
Very good, Mr. Morgue. May I use your phone, please?
Tom Harris's description is something like, and she looked at him, and he looked back at her, and they knew each other.
Sure, you can use
and it's just this chilling moment.
Freeze! Put your hands over your head!
He enjoyed the feeling of being caught, in a way. It was a tension. It was like it was somebody finally playing at the level that he'd been playing at. A woman who had his number. He met his match.
Freeze!
Jonathan has always been a great Hitchcock fan. Some of the concepts in Lambs are based on Hitchcockian theories of suspense. You know, the old one that everybody quotes is, you show the audience the bomb under the seat, but you don't tell the characters about it. And so they're on their edge of their seat all of the time. There's a tremendous amount of suspense. You know he's down there somewhere. Don't know where he is.
The other scary thing is that the audience has forgotten about the night goggles, so that there's a great advantage in the middle of the scene to being able to say, boom, now the lights are out.
And then she's down there, the lights are out, she's moving around, and then you get this image of he's following her, and he's in complete control.
We did change our own rule about Clarice's point of view and went just for a moment to Gunn's point of view.
The hand coming into frame was something that was sort of an organic thing that kind of happened as we were there, and we played with that idea.
And so it becomes the same thing as Hitchcock. She's not aware of it, you know, and so we're aware of it. A large part of the story lived in darkness. I think it required for most of us to sort of surrender ourselves to it so that we could tell the story.
The paradox of filming this was that it's such a dark film, and it was such a delightful experience for everybody.
I don't think when you make a film about horrible things that you create a horrible atmosphere. And the process of making this film was not horrible at all.
You don't always get to have such fun on something so awful.
He kept the set very light-hearted. You go to work with that feeling that you're going to have a good time. Don't take anything too seriously.
Everybody was having fun. It was almost like a party that was gonna maybe go out of control, but people would keep themselves in check because they wanted to do their best for Jonathan.
The success of the film is such a product of collaboration.
Every member of the crew, whoever they were, felt that they were equal and all the best people for the job.
He would open the door to everybody, and his attitude with this picture was, what do you got to bring to the party? He was really open-minded.
It's what you hope for on almost all films, to be able to express yourself, have a great collaboration, and make something better than you ever dreamed of.